Kia ora everyone, good morning. Thank you, Alistair, for that kind introduction. Thanks for the mihi very much. And it's great to have the opportunity to be here. Apparently 6 times, my officials thought 5, but 6 times. And it was weird too to learn, Alistair, that you get those same calls on a Friday afternoon from the TEC. Mine are normally slightly different, but for some reason everything happens at Friday afternoon at 4. It is 6 years since we've started meeting like this. So, it's great to see you all again. I hope you're all well. Who's here from Otago and Southland? Yeah, well, you're pretty happy, aren't you? Come back to the scene of the crime. Great to see you here. Your shout for lunch. And it is a privilege to have the opportunity to speak to you face to face at the symposium. I've got to do the housekeeping. I don't know, did I do this last year? It's really important now because nothing happens these days unless it happens on social media, right? So just got to get a photo of the crowd. Very good. That's one there and one over there. Oh yes, that's right. You all smile. It's like because you're a little bit smaller group over here. So smile, look more animated. That's great. And then I was trying this one the other day, but. You have to press the selfie button, otherwise it doesn't work. There's a little trap for the players here. So you go, oh, that's not going to, well, if I put my head in the light, there we go, that's great. And I also do this thing called live tweeting. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's hard doing my job these days. There's all this stuff you've got to do. Actually, it's primarily so that my mum and dad can see, because they follow me on Facebook. And if they watch the TV news, they get a certain perspective on their son's work, which may not be altogether flattering. So if I tweet to them, and other people as well, then they think, oh no, he's actually doing some good things as well, and that's encouraging. I'll tweet later, I've got my photo and I'm all set. Over the next couple of days is really important, because this is the opportunity to step back from the sort of the day-to-day, the coalface, if you like, of doing what you do. And to share and promote good practice, good processes, but also share your knowledge, create networks and discuss research findings. And I think also make sure that you plug in and tell the central agencies what's working and what's not working, so that you can give them the direct feedback. Because, you know, weirdly, in here in Wellington, sometimes it's a bit of a vortex. And I know you won't have experienced this from your perspective, but we sit here and we can get a view of how things are happening, which may or may not be close to what is reality. So this is your opportunity by coming here to Wellington, having this symposium, to make sure that everybody that decides policy in this area has the opportunity to get your feedback directly. Think of it like a 200-person focus group. And if you find your TEC person or your NZQA person or whatever, where are they, by the way? Who's TEC? Right, so stand up, that's really good. So these are the people you need to tell. Don't stay standing up. It's only going to be a second. That's great, tremendous. So these are the people you need to tell to make sure they're all doing the right thing, okay? TEC, anybody from NZQA? Yeah, stand up NZQA. They're always fun, those ones. Excellent, great. Thanks very much. Anybody from the Ministry of Education? Yeah, anyway, that's good. Don't talk to them. No, just kidding. They're very good too, okay? So make sure you do take that opportunity. Could I acknowledge the mana whenua, Peter and Evelyn from Port Nicholson. Can I acknowledge Professor Diana Coburn, who's the Director of the National Centre, and all the delegates here today. And frankly, every one of you who is an individual champion, an educator or an employer who works tirelessly on this project to lift literacy and numeracy for adults in New Zealand. I'm thrilled at the theme this year, Flying Higher, because truly that is what we want. We want the ability for all New Zealanders to fly higher, to gain the skills that increase their earning power. That's important, but probably more important is what that actually gives them in terms of their ability to improve their lives and the lives of their families. We want to narrow the gaps that we see in literacy and numeracy skills, and I think that's, again, more important than it probably has been in any other time of history, because there are less lower skilled jobs these days, more higher skilled jobs, and it's constantly moving up the chain into jobs that need more and more understanding of literacy and numeracy. So we do need to keep focusing in this area and improving the outcome for all our adults. People who have sound literacy and numeracy skills improve the workforce, and that improves the economy and society. Being confident in one's literacy and numeracy skills is also have tremendous social benefits, and that is where your work makes a very big difference. We have had a period of improving outcomes in the New Zealand economy, showing ongoing job growth. We've also had a record labour market participation rate. Our labour market participation rate, the number of adults in the workforce, is setting records all over the world. It's one of the highest in the world. We have the third highest employment rate in the developed world, which is quite impressive, but it means also that a lot of the people that are coming into the workforce won't necessarily have all the skills they need to stay in the workforce. A quarterly employment survey shows that hourly wages continue to increase ahead of the cost of living. Average hourly earnings are up around 2% over the last year, and the consumer price index, that doesn't sound much until you see the consumer price index has been up around 0.1%. However, there are challenges. The economy has risks, particularly from around the world, and we see Greece, we see China, we see the dairy sector on the TV at night. Those bring challenges, and that reminds all of us that it is about getting these skills in place to help people get and also maintain employment. So literacy and numeracy for adults will remain a very significant priority for this government. It's one of the 6 priorities of our tertiary education strategy, and we all need to keep working at it to give all New Zealand adults the opportunity to build their skills so they can fully participate in an increasingly knowledge-based economy. We've seen significant progress over the last 7 years since we first started funding the centre and funding the program to transform adult literacy and numeracy. The TEC has invested in the development of a national infrastructure to support educators and also delivery to learners through a range of funds and grants. We have a national framework now, and a number of learners receiving adult literacy and numeracy opportunities each year has quadrupled since 2010 to an estimated 175,000 in 2013. And this has continued to grow since then, which is fantastic. I'm pleased to see too the growth in the usage of the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults assessment tool. That continues to improve, although I don't think we've quite yet reached the full effective usage of this tool. It's a key diagnostic tool that determines literacy and numeracy competency for adults and informs deliberate acts of teaching in specific areas of need. There's no argument that good teaching practice surpasses anything that a diagnostic tool can tell you. The tool is just the tool, right? But teaching that is a more targeted and deliberate affair gives educators the power to tailor delivery to each student, and that's really what we're looking at here. So please do use the tool to help you determine where learners are at and use that information to help tailor your teaching so they learn and make the most gain. Learners, of course, through the tool get a better understanding of where they are in their current competency and can track their own progress. And it gives them greater control over their learning decisions and hopefully acts as a motivator to set their learning goals. Since the tool's launch 5 years ago, we've been making improvements to it to make it easier for you to work with learners to improve their skills. It includes launching the youth option last year, the global unlock feature, so you know what assessments learners have done before coming to your class, and some new options which I'm launching here today. We're also extending the use of the tool to people who are not involved in tertiary study but have high literacy and numeracy needs. At last year's Symposium, I told you that the TEC was about to start work on a refresh of the literacy and numeracy implementation strategy created in 2012, which was news to the TEC at the time. But nevertheless, they have taken that up and they are working on that as we speak. Their literacy and numeracy team has developed a draft revised implementation strategy in consultation and engagement with the sector that has now been released to be consulted on. So please do put forward your views and ideas in writing to the TEC, or as I say, talk to TEC officials here at the workshops. The new strategy will set out how the sector, employers and government agencies will lift skills between now and 2019. It will have a strong emphasis on assessment tool usage and will support those goals that I have spoken to you about today. I understand after morning tea today, Ganesh Nana is going to be speaking alongside Catherine Hazelwood to tell us more about TEC commissioned research about the impact the assessment tool usage has on learner outcomes as measured through course completions. And I don't really want to steal your thunder, so I won't say the next two lines, because I looked at that this morning and thought, well, that's a bit tough actually, because I tell them the story. So let's just say it'll be very interesting. Okay. One of the challenges we face is reaching a significant number of adults who are working but have low or very low literacy and numeracy skills. Now, one way of meeting those needs of employers and employees is through programs like the Workplace Literacy and Numeracy Fund and the Skills Highway. This fund supports programs that are delivered at work. This year, 20 employers are providing literacy and numeracy training to over 1,000 workers. These employers across a range of industries, from construction, manufacturing, horticulture, ports, mining, dairy, and aged care. They're also well represented at different parts around the country. Excuse me. We're making a few changes in this area as well, including putting the Workplace Literacy and Numeracy Fund application online to make it easier for employers to sign up. And the Skills Highway team are also developing a number of resources, including a self-audit tool for employers and managers to see if literacy and numeracy issues are affecting health and safety in the workplace. The panel this afternoon should provide some interesting insights into how employers and employees perceive workplace literacy and numeracy training programs. Now, I thought I'd disappear off-piste for a moment and talk to you about something I saw last week in Sydney. I went along to see an initiative called the Barangaroo Skills Exchange. The Barangaroo Skills Exchange. Barangaroo is a big project between Darling Harbour and the city. It's something like about 6 large buildings being built, or 8 large buildings. There's 3,200 people working on the site, or sites. And they have a skills exchange program there where the employers, the contractors, the local TAFE, which is the equivalent of our ITPs, and the Skills Council, which are equivalent to our ITOs, have got together to promote skills in that particular site. But the interesting thing was how much they are supplying literacy and numeracy skills as part of the skills exchange. And I thought it was a very interesting approach, and it's something that we should look at doing when we come to major infrastructure and building projects in this country. So if you have the opportunity, go and have a look at it online. But also, if you are aware of it, again, have that discussion with the TEC and NZQA, because I think that opportunity to lift skills in the workplace when people are ready to learn, because they're also very interested in upping their general skills to participate in perhaps a promotion or something like that, is very important. And that's where we have an opportunity to engage more people in improving their literacy and numeracy. So in conclusion, more people will need to access high quality education and training to improve their literacy and numeracy skills. Technology and international competition mean that future jobs do require higher skills. So with that in mind, our job as a government is to fund the improvement of literacy and numeracy skills, and that will always remain a priority. Next year, we will have the PIAC survey, which will provide us with our next comparable data on the skills of our adult population. The last data we have now is from 2006, which means it's nearly a decade old. This new data will help us better understand the situation globally and also how we compare, and will help our system best meet the skill needs. So the job is never done, but please do realise and know that your efforts matter a great deal. For every person helped, you are improving adult literacy and numeracy and opening up their opportunities and making their opportunities and their lives more expansive, more things that they can do for them and their families. So that's the formal part of the speech. I now have to launch something, is that correct? Very good, excellent. I'm very good at launching things. Is there a ribbon? Okay, so today I'm launching there's no ribbon. Launching 2 new options to the assessment tool. A Māori learner option for reading assessments called Te Ata Hapara, and an English for speakers of other language option for catering to ESOL and low-level literacy learners. So improving literacy and numeracy is about giving people more choices in work, in study and in life. So today we're launching this new assessment tool. There's been consultation and development work for these options over the last year, and we want to thank the providers and staff who have helped develop these new options by contributing their expertise and piloting questions with learners. So you know who you are. Thank you very, very much for the work that you've done. There's very high interest in these new options. I'm not sure, am I supposed to be pressing any buttons here or just leaving it as it is at the moment? It's good. It's fine. It's happy on its own. That's good. You're pressing it, David. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'll just keep an eye on him now. Okay, it's also good to see high interest in these new options. We're building on last year's launch of the youth option. I'm pleased that many educators have found the youth option very helpful. Our budget this year provides just under $2 million in capital and operating funding to further expand the youth option by increasing the number of items from 500 to 1,300. And I understand that's something that people are seeking, of more items in the youth option. And that will ensure that it remains responsive to the literacy and numeracy needs of young learners. So these options are designed to be culturally and educationally appropriate for the specific groups of learners. So we have the Māori learner option for reading assessments called Te Ata Hapara. It provides reading assessments in English targeted to Māori learners of all ages by reflecting a Māori worldview and audience-appropriate contexts. It will be available both online and on paper. Secondly, we have the ESOL option for listening, vocabulary and reading assessments. This option is based on the starting points, which supports the learning progressions. The option caters to ESOL and low-level literacy learners and will be delivered through tablets. Trials for Te Ata Hapara will begin this month. Trials for starting points vocabulary will begin in September, and trials for starting points reading will follow afterwards. These new options will broaden the assessment tool's use and value, increase learner engagement, and respond to your feedback as educators and providers. The assessment tool has always had the ability to support a range of audience-specific assessment options. These new options are a further evolution in its development. So, I am pleased to now officially launch. Right. Excellent. I am now pleased to officially launch Te Ata Hapara, the Māori learner option of the assessment tool, and the ESOL option of the assessment tool. I hope they both prove very useful to you in your work. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take a couple of questions because we learnt, I think it was last year in particular, it was a very interesting session. So, is there one down the back? I'll take that as a compliment.
Workplace literacy funding in anticipation or because of the low success rate to date. Thank you.
I'm pleased to confirm we won't be doing that. We will not be reducing workplace literacy and numeracy funding because of that. And in fact, I think we're seeing some very good anecdotal progress. What we do need to do is continue to evaluate and ensure we can measure that quantitatively as well. I'm a passionate advocate for this work, and if we have any problems at any stage where we say, well, it's not quite working the way that we want it to work, well then let's change it and make it work better. Let's not stop doing it because actually it's crucially important. So don't worry about that. The good news is, in a fiscal sense, while we will find out today how we're going at tracking to budget surplus, because it seems to be one of those things that's a bit of a shaggy dog story. 1 minute we aren't, the next minute we are. Overall, New Zealand's fiscal position is getting a lot better, and certainly a lot better than Australia's, which means we are probably in a position we can't grow a lot of stuff, but we're certainly not in a position where we have to take hard choices to stop things that are working, and I think that's positive. So we're very supportive of this program. Yep, down that way.
Kia ora, my name's Jennifer Nahoro. I work for Southland Education with the YMCA in Invercargill. I'm interested to know whether TEC is going to be at all addressing the unreachable targets that we are being given at the moment. I'm teaching youth who have fallen out of school, unable to reach 80 credits, and unless they, we have to enrol them in 120. If they don't make 77, we have to give our funding back. In the last year, we have lost 5 tutors. I feel amongst, same as all my colleagues, that we are being given unattainable targets, which don't allow for the literacy and numeracy needs that these people have on top of achieving their NCEA credits. And also, it doesn't take into account the type of cope-up and learning that we have to do with our students.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of things, and I stand corrected, but I'm doing this from memory. I'm pretty sure that we don't have to enrol people for 120 credits. That's correct. There might be a misunderstanding there, so maybe I've got down here saying no, we don't, and up there. So I'm going to suggest you get together at lunchtime and have a yarn, because I know it is something that has come up in the past, and actually, it's as I understand it, it's not a requirement. But I think TEC should have that discussion with you today, and we don't want to create unreachable targets, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. So it's important we get a common understanding of what is required and then go from there. The second point I would say is, having said that, by putting more requirements than we had previously under the old youth training model, there is no doubt that a lot of people are getting more credits and making more progress than they were previously. So it's about getting a balance. It's not over requiring, but at the same time ensuring we do get progress. So can I suggest that TEC folks talk to you at lunchtime and go through it, and by all means drop me a line if I'm completely wrong, which is known to happen, as was pointed out successfully earlier. Then we can we'll follow up. Yep.
Kia ora, Minister. My name is Alison Sutton. I'm from an education trust, Comet Auckland, linked to Auckland Council. I would like to kind of build on what was just said from Southland, but go back even a bit further. How about the TEC is encouraged to generally enable literacy providers to be thinking intergenerationally? 24% of Auckland children are leaving primary school below reading standard. That's a big burden for the high schools. And if you haven't cracked reading by 8, we've got a growth industry here. People who haven't cracked by 8 are coming up to the adult literacy movement. But TEC rules don't encourage thinking intergenerationally. And I had a vision that every workplace literacy program was allowed to have half an hour of its time focused on how to quite explicitly and actively build the capacity of parents to help their kids. And it has to be intentional, and we could scale that out. There's potential to join up the system, but there is no vision to connect the adult learning world and the early learning world and have a national vision for grazing literacy across the board. We've got lots of bits of things. And it's really going to have to be TEC that goes from the adult end down to the beginning and puts family in it, because really that's probably the obstacle.
Okay, that's a really good point. No, I agree with you. The challenge with all these things, and maybe you could design this over the next 2 days, but the challenge with all these things is coming up against what public accountability for the individual funds that you put in place. And I'm going to take it a little bit wider again, but I can certainly see the benefit of that. First problem you get is that the Ministry of Education funds the young people in the TEC. These are just practical problems, but I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying this is what we've got to deal with to get ourselves across this line. And the TEC funds tertiary. And so first thing I do is define what it is we're trying to get TEC to achieve, and we focus on second chance learners at TEC and the young at risk. But you're right. I mean, it's what's coming through the pipeline next that's our challenge. The people that are coming through the pipeline, and the effect that their families' lack of knowledge or lack of literacy and numeracy has the impact. One of the things, can I just take it a little bit wider? One of the things I've been giving some thought to is this whole idea of how we can be a bit more tailored to individual needs, because the funding systems have to, there's a funding system for Youth Guarantee, there's a funding system for Māori and Pacifica Trades Training, there's a funding system for second chance learners, there's funding for intensive literacy and numeracy. And one of the challenges for providers is, okay, so I've got all these funding and then I've got a bunch of people who are quite different. and they all have quite different needs. And how do I match their needs to the funds and not spend so much time? And the trouble with that is at the other end of the thing, I can't just sort of authorise the writing of a cheque which says, oh, here's a couple of $1 million, knock yourselves out. Hopefully there's some good outcomes at the end of it. So there's that balance. The other thing is the public accountability. And that's the other area that we're working on. So I think we're going to see a bit of work over the next year or so which says, well, how do we improve that flexibility of outcomes while also maintaining the increased effectiveness of the funding system that we are seeing. And it is more effective, it's getting better results, but it does mean that there's some challenging sort of things that don't quite work in terms of being sufficiently flexible, like, for example, your example. So we're going to work away on that one. And again, happy to have your input. Please drop us a line, whether it's to the agencies or to me. Okay, I think I have to turn into a pumpkin because I've got to get a plane to the West Coast. So thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you very, very much for everything you do. Have a great couple of days, and I hope you have the opportunity to share, learn, and teach our agencies as well as to what's working and what's not working. Thank you very much.